Um, oh, maybe I'm just arrogant. I don't know. I just thought I could do it. That's probably the truth, to be honest. I don't know. Like, I always wanted to work in cricket. When I first decided that I wanted to be a strength and conditioning coach, like working in cricket was my dream job. But I deliberately chose not to work in cricket straight away. I was like, okay, if I just go and follow the one thing that I want to do, I'm going to pigeonhole myself, and I'm also going to put my thinking inside of a box. So I try to
Ooh.
expose myself to as much stuff as possible.
Hmm.
I went and worked with a speed and agility coach, a guy named Roger Fabry here in Sydney. That's where sort of like my interest in speed training really blossomed from, I guess. Um, Went to the New South Wales Institute of Sport. They're sort of like the state body that support Olympic athletes. So you see all sorts of guys. You've got sprinters, you've got Paralympic athletes, you've got basketball players, everything. So you see how different people train. Worked in a high school setting, which is where I got my first exposure to rugby. Um, Worked with basketball, worked with cricket, worked with rugby league with Graham, like we spoke about before. And it was only after all of this that an opportunity to work in cricket came up. And by that point, I was like I know cricket. That's the easy part. Like, I'm going to fit in culturally. Um, I probably came in like thinking, oh yeah, we're going to train real hard, and we didn't really train as hard as I thought we would. But that's the culture of the training in the sport as opposed to the sporting culture. So yeah, I knew the sporting culture. I had a good foundation of exposure to different philosophies around training, different sports, and that was pretty easy. And then moving back out of cricket to come back into rugby league, because of the way I approached things early on in my career. I'd worked in the sport before. I enjoy the sport. I watch a lot of rugby league. Like, I feel like I understand what's going on in the game. So I felt like I could come back in. And the other thing that I really have made an effort to do is sit in on as much football, skills related discussions as possible, to try and really understand what the coaches want out of the players, to understand the terminology, to understand the philosophy of how they want to play the game, so that I can tie things back in terms of, all right, we've got particular things that the coaches are looking for around the game model that tie into speed development. And that's why it's important for you as a player to be good in these areas and make that connection so that the players understand why they're doing things.
Anybody listening, you need to go back and listen to what he. I mean, that kind of struck me just because I was a football player, right, playing high school, and I'm like, yeah, I'm going to be in the NFL, and like, everything was through the lens of like strength and conditioning is only for football players, right? And I did not do what you did. I commend you for that, and I think anybody, listening to this right now, rewind it and rehear what he just said, because I think there's some very big power in what you just said right there.
Look, I'll be honest. When I first walked into the Newtown Jets gym with Graham as a university student, like, I was shitting myself. I had no idea what was happening. I was like so outside my comfort zone. But I'm so grateful that I decided to do that to myself while I was young, while I was an intern. Like, if I get it wrong in that environment, like, Graham's just gonna be like, oh, this guy's not that clever. But there's nothing on the line. So, yeah, going full picture to where I'm at in my career now, like, that was such an awesome foundation and grounding for me. And Graham was an awesome mentor as well in terms of helping me understand how things fit together and explaining just the lie of the land for me.
Do you have any desire to, transition back into high school as, like you said, you're still young, and so spending time, in meetings with coaches to understand rugby and the passing and all of that. Still fine now, but you talked about being married. Do you see that transition out of sport eventually, or you're like, nah, I'm a diehard. I'm in it now.
At the moment, I'm a diehard. I'll never say never, but I love the feeling of having something on the line, like the pressure. I enjoy it. But yeah, that might not last forever. Like, I'm open to whatever will come. Like, I didn't see myself moving into this role until someone called me and said, "Hey, would you be interested?" So, yeah, like I'm open to what's going to happen down the line. Like I don't have kids yet. There's less responsibility in terms of that, in terms of my work life balance. My wife doesn't really like me hanging around the house that much, to be honest. So she probably would get a little bit annoyed if I wanted to spend more time at home. Potentially a good thing for my career prospects.
That's
We do love each
awesome.
other.
That's awesome. What has been some of the best things you've learned in those meetings where the coaches are talking technical, tactical of, whatever aspect? What have you learned, and then what would you recommend people do when they're in those meetings?
Yeah, like I sit there and I just try and picture like that I'm one of the players. So that's my approach. I want to learn as if I'm a player. Like if I was in so and so's shoes, sitting 3 rows in front of me, that player there, do I have clarity around my role, what my job is? Um, do I understand the key principles that drive our decision making around what we want to do in different phases of the game? And then which areas that are physical in nature underpin the player's ability to go and do those things. And that's where I get excited about it, because I go, okay, well, actually, I can help you get better at that sort of stuff. Like that's where I can influence our performance. That's just what I did. I don't know if that's right or wrong, but it's not particularly groundbreaking. But yeah, like I said, that's the approach I took, and it's really helped me like learn the playing side of the game. I've always watched rugby league. Like it's a very popular TV sport in Australia. It's probably the most watched sport behind maybe the Australian cricket team. They probably get a bit more viewership, but week in, week out, the National Rugby League, like I always grew up watching it. So understanding the game as a spectator is one thing, but it's completely different to understanding it as a player. Like what players' roles are, what they're trying to do, like what's the tactical side of the game that sets up or underpins them being able to go and do the flashy stuff on the end of it. That's probably less clear to the uninitiated or the casual viewer. So yeah, I've just tried to sort of be a student of the game. Because in the back of my mind, I've always thought that I was an athlete, so I just
Don't
try
we
and like
all,
have that
right?
mentality. Yeah.
I mean, I think there's beauty in what you said right there, though, because that's probably what anybody should do if they're working in a new sport. They should go to those meetings. They should listen, so that way they can, be a part of the staff that they're working with, but they can understand the sport more. No,
Oh, it's made a huge difference. Made a huge difference for me. And I think the players initially, when I'm the new guy who's just showed up, I've come from a sport that's not rugby league. They probably are a bit unsure. Like, does this guy actually know what we're meant to be doing? So if you can speak the language, um, you immediately just get that little inkling of buy-in. They think, oh, you know what? Maybe this guy does understand what our job is, and that really helps get that buy-in. That yeah, like I said, we spend so much time with these players. When you ask them to do something, you ask them. It's the 10th thing you've asked them to do today. Like if they know that you're an okay guy, that you're not some pretender, it helps.
Congratulations on making it to the end of the video. Why don't you celebrate by watching more videos just like it? You can also help us on our quest to placate the algorithm gods by liking, sharing, subscribing, and commenting. Thank you.